Hi, I'm Rachel, a resource expert and career coach for museum educators who are stretched thin but long to fall in love with their world-changing work. After over 15 years with my own hands in the glitter, I know how it feels when your board thinks your work is childish because you work with children. I know how hard it is to lead a tour on a difficult subject, and I know the frustration of waiting on a school bus that is 20 minutes late. Or worse, 10 minutes early. As I'm heading towards the second half of my career, I find myself with a passion to help my fellow educators reverse the chronic state of being overworked and underappreciated so that they can reclaim their creativity and emotional energy. Join me and my museum buddies as we share our best tips, tricks, and techniques for modern museum education. Hey there, friends. A quick note before we dive in. Unfortunately, the sound quality on this episode isn't up to my usual standards, but I decided to share it anyways because sometimes done is better than perfect. I'll revisit the topic of human-centered design in a future episode, and in the meantime, you can find the full transcript of this episode at modernmuseumeducation.com/podcast/016. Thanks.
Hello and welcome back. 12 Days of Christmas Museum Education Edition, my holiday gift to the museum educator community. So as you know, we've been releasing shortish podcast episodes every day for the last 6 days. This is day 7. We're going to go through 12 days leading up to right before Christmas with several episodes that are intended to inspire you as you approach the new year and might have some time to think about how you want to level up your museum education programs next year. So today I wanted to talk about using human-centered design in museum program development. Human-centered design is a concept that is becoming a little bit more well-known, but I do think there are still a lot of people who aren't really aware of what human-centered design is. And that's unfortunate because it has a lot to offer, especially to museum educators when we're thinking about program design. A lot of times human-centered design is used in the context of like physical design. Maybe you might think in the museum world, you might hear about it in terms of maybe exhibit design or gallery space design. But I think there's a lot of value in borrowing some of the tools and techniques of human-centered design when we're developing program elements. And so let me explain to you what that is and what I mean by all of this. So essentially, human-centered design puts people, visitors, everyone, right? It puts people at the heart of your programming so that every experience can be relevant, meaningful, and engaging. So in the same way that systems thinking highlights the role of stakeholder perspectives, human-centered design is really all about putting people first. It's about designing with humans at the center of your thinking. So what is it that humans need? You're going to design for that. That's all of human-centered design. So when we're talking about program design, this means that we are ensuring that every experience is relevant, meaningful, and engaging for the humans who are going to be participating in this program. Human-centered design is an approach to problem solving that focuses on the needs, desires, and the experiences of the people who will be using your service, or in our case, interacting with our programs. So here it means understanding our visitors. It doesn't matter if they're school groups, families, adult learners, everyone of all ages. You're going to be designing programs around their needs and expectations. And this sounds like a really tall order because how do you design a program that meets the needs of every single person who might possibly visit your institution? This is a tall order, and it is not really something that can be done to design a single program that meets the needs for every person who might even potentially walk through your door. But there are 3 sort of phases to human-centered design that can help you develop programs that meet the needs for as many people as you possibly can at any given moment. Okay? So the first phase is inspiration. And that just simply means understanding your audience. This is where your goal is to understand your audience at a deep level. This is the part of design where empathy is key. Okay, you need to start by researching and listening to your audience. What do they care about? What challenges do they face? What are their interests? So when you're designing a program, this could involve something as complex and extended as conducting surveys and interviews with your target audience. But it could also be as simple as just observing visitors in your museum space, watching how people move through the space, listening to the questions that they're asking, listening to the observations that they are making on their own, things that they're saying to each other, and then things that they're saying to your staff. Essentially, all this phase is evaluation, and it can be as simple or as complex as you have the capacity for at this moment. You might consider talking to educators, parents, community leaders, and also, of course, talk to the children who are in your museum. You can ask questions like, what was your favorite thing you saw today? What did you learn today? What was most interesting? If you're bold, you can also ask questions like, what was the most boring thing you saw today? What is the one thing you saw today that you think you'll probably forget? Now, that's a question that will humble you real quick, especially when they answer something that you think is super important, or maybe your favorite object in the collection. To hear someone say, that meant nothing to me, can hurt your heart a little bit. But it is really important to help you understand, what is it that is resonating with the people that you are trying to reach. So this is an information gathering phase, and you cannot skip this step. If you're trying to put humans at the center of your design, you need to understand what it is they want to hear more about. And don't forget to review past program evaluations, look at audience data, attendance data to identify trends of when people are coming to visit your museum, what exhibits have brought in the biggest crowds, what time of day do people like to visit, how long do they spend in certain areas of your institution. This is all really important information that can help you get a really clear picture of what it is people want and need from your organization. Once you have gathered your information, the second sort of phase of human-centered design is ideation. And this is where the fun begins. Now that you've gathered all of your insights, this is where you get to brainstorm creative solutions. And this is similar to what I talked about in the episode on original ideas. The more ideas you can come up with, the more likely you are to land on a really good one. So here you want to come up with a wide variety of ideas, no matter how big or small. Engage in some blue sky thinking. Don't let limitations hold you back. Think big, think innovative, think radical. And also think about collaboration. Collaboration is key. You really want to be involving people from different parts of your museum, educators, exhibit designers, administration, support services staff, facility staff. And again, you want to involve the stakeholders who will be participating in the programs. So the visitors themselves, the grown-ups, the parents, the teachers, the guardians, the children, the participants, the community members, people who visit without children, people who visit with children, all of these different groups of stakeholders. You want to hear from them, involve them in this ideation process to the best of your ability. Again, don't bite off more than you can chew here. Keep it realistic to the capacity that you currently have. To whatever capacity you have to involve a multitude of stakeholder voices, do that. The more voices you can get, the better your program will be in the end. And the third phase is implementation. And I've said this in a couple of different contexts, in a couple of different episodes in this 12 Days of Christmas series, but there is great value in iteration. Trying something small, seeing how it works, tweaking it, and adjusting it to go forward. Put your ideas into action, but don't just put them into action like a crock pot and leave it and walk away and hope that it all cooks together nicely. This is the kind of thing where you need to stay active in the process. Continually monitor how the program is landing for visitors. How are they reacting to it? Can it be tweaked? Do you need to tweak? In what ways can you continue to make this better? So you might look at pilot testing a program, doing something small on a small scale before rolling it out to a bigger group. You might look for feedback. So do a test run, ask participants what they liked, what worked well. And sometimes you don't even have to say it out loud. Just watch for their reactions. Do they understand the instructions? Can they find what they need? Is everything accessible to them physically, emotionally, intellectually? Like, look for clues in their body language, look for verbal cues. And if you need to ask specifically, don't be afraid to ask. People love to give their opinion, so feel free to ask for it. And of course, iterate on any changes that need to be made. Make those improvements and continue to test. That iterative process helps you continually improve and it makes it so that you're always meeting your audience's needs. So now that I've kind of given a high overview of the key elements of human-centered design, inspiration, ideation, and implementation, let's just talk real briefly about the benefits of using this approach in your museum program development. First, this will lead to more relevant programs. When you center your design process around your audience's needs, you ensure that your programs are not only engaging, but relevant and meaningful to the visitor. They will come away with more, they will learn more, and they will hold on to that experience much longer when it means something personal to them. Again, this goes back to work that I cite all the time, the value of museums and the museum visitor identity and learning in museums. This is fundamental pedagogy that you must embrace if you are going to be developing quality programs. Developing relevant, personally meaningful programs for your visitors is absolutely the key to sustainable museum programming. Secondly, human-centered design fosters collaboration. It encourages teamwork and input from the people inside and outside your museum. It elevates the perspective of every stakeholder. It makes everybody feel like they have been involved in this process, and therefore everybody feels personally invested in your program, in your museum, and in whatever subject you're interpreting, whether it's science or art or history. You want people to feel connected to it, and the best way to make them feel connected to it is to involve them in the process. And finally, it drives consistent improvement. So by continually testing and getting feedback and iterating, your programs will only get better over time. All right, that's all for today's episode. I hope you found it helpful or inspiring, and if you did, I would love to hear from you. I will be back tomorrow with another episode to help you bridge the gap between scholarship and practice as you get ready for a fantastic 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. If this episode has been helpful to you or interesting, please take a minute to like, subscribe, and leave a review, which will help other museum educators find this resource. As always, if you would like to work with me more directly, have any questions, or would like to be a guest on the podcast, you can find links to all that and more on my website, modernmuseumeducation.com. I'll see you back here next time, and in the meantime, please remember that your work is not childish just because you work with children.